So without further ado, an amazing man, educator, and partner in this work, please join me in welcoming my new friend, Dr. Christopher Emdin.
Thank you so much, dear sister. What an amazing introduction. Made me feel special and important and valuable in the way that we want our students to feel, right? And you know, it's so funny, as you started giving that introduction and you emphasize this concept of right now and like the need for us right now to be wondering about care and courage and commitment. And right now, given the larger context, I wanna switch my talk to have a response to this concept of right now and say for such a time as this. And anybody who's born in the Pentecostal Black church tradition understands that phrase, for such a time as this. It is oftentimes used in moments where there's doubt amongst the congregation, or in moments where there's some consternation around a social issue, usually when there's a loss, when there's something that strikes the collective imagination or collective heartbreak, the preacher would say that folks should suspend their feelings and emotions and frustrations and just sit in such a time as this. And when you emphasize this object of this notion of right now, and I think about the stuff that's happening right now, right? Like right now, a week and some change after Martin Luther King Day, 3 weeks plus after the 1-year anniversary of the insurrection of the Capitol, when folks who were marching on the Capitol in ways that were counter to the mission of Dr. King were invoking Dr. King's quotes to justify their practices that were counter to his mission. You say, how? Like, so the reality is we are in a moment where we're like right now, but we're also concurrently in a moment where we need to respond to the right now with a recognition that we are chosen for such a time as this. Y'all, this is indeed a moment, unlike anything we've seen before, right? In the midst of the pandemics that are related to health, we're also dealing with pandemics related to a racial reckoning in this country. As we sit as an organization to have conversations around a diverse by design moment to say, we're gonna be intentional about how we design spaces that emphasize diversity and make sure that all folks' needs are met. But we're doing all that in the context of the world at large. And so right now we're like, what is going on? But I wanted to let you know that you are chosen for such a time as this. You could have been in a classroom 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where things were not quite good, but there was a sense of we know what we're doing. Right now, we don't know what we're doing. We are faced with stuff that's unlike anything we've seen before. You're not called to lead, but what if I told you you're called to lead in this season because you were chosen for such a time as this? There are moments in the world where we do our jobs just to do our jobs. But there are moments in the world where we are doing our work to create a legacy. And if you're listening to me today, I want you to understand that 50 years from now, folks will look back at this time in the history books and say, what was going on? They will ask questions. When the world was going crazy, where were you? And my hope as a futurist and an optimist is that when folks ask that question about 50 years ago to you as you sit right now, you will sit in your old age and say, I was there. And they will say, what were you doing in that moment? And you'll be able to say, I worked within schools. I led institutions. And they'll say, oh my gosh, because by that time, folks will have a reverence for those who teach. And they will ask you, you were actually on the front lines, because what we do in classrooms every day is the front lines.